Our next guest is the station manager at campus radio station affected by Meta's news block. Jesse Woodward is with CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo, BC, and he joins us from that city right now. So, Jesse, let's start with how Meta's news block affected your station.
So it's been frustrating. We're a nonprofit media org with a very small staff, paid nonprofit wages, and we have limited resources. So it's made it somewhat more difficult to promote our station's activities. But I'm really glad I have a decent email newsletter with a list to work with. So I'm not completely cut off from our followers. In terms of like how it's affected us day to day, like I said, it's made it more difficult to connect with people. What we would have typically done in the past, before the block, we would make posts about our programs, what we're doing at the station, like our summer radio camp for kids that just wrapped up this August. We would look to recruit volunteers, and like NPR, National Public Radio down in the States, during our fund drives, we would use it to raise awareness about the fact that we were raising operational money to run our station.
I want to interrupt you, sir, because part of this, you're talking about the money part of this, right? And part of the proposal for Meta and Google is to pay a combined $234 million to Canadian media. So what would this extra funding mean to someone like you and your station?
Well, it would depend on how much money would be on the table for a station like ours. You know, we're a small sector in the grand scheme of things. You know, $20,000 would top up our core staff wages and allow us to set a little bit aside to replace aging broadcast equipment. If it was like $120,000, we could be looking at hiring 2 or 1 full-time local journalist to report on important local news that it's being underreported, because newsrooms are shrinking all across Canada.
Yes, we know that.
A decade ago in Nanaimo, we had 3 newspapers. Today we have 1. And all of this is linked to declining revenues for for-profit news organizations in Canada and abroad.
The erosion is scary. I mean, what do you make of the way the negotiations have gone between big tech and the government to this point?
I think it's going as expected, based on what I had seen happen in Australia and what I've read over the last year or so. You know, Meta is doing what Meta will do. They're an unregulated corporate tech giant that looks out for its shareholders, and they're going to do as little as possible to support journalism or consider the public good that comes with it. And I suspect our government knows this, and this legislation is meant to correct that.
That's the aim here, Jesse, right? But Meta reacted to this proposal saying it would not impact its decision to end news availability, and that the legislation is based on, they're saying, incorrect assertions that Meta benefits unfairly from the news content shared on their platforms. What is your reaction to that part of this?
Well, to that I say content is king, and Facebook wouldn't be where it is today without content produced either by its users or by local news organizations. And so I find it a little bit rich. You know, a decade ago, 80% of ad revenues spent in Canada went to organizations that produced news. Today, 80% goes to organizations, tech giants, Google, Meta, that don't do any journalism. And the power dynamic has shifted in a way that's unfair and not necessarily healthy for a democracy that we live in. And so I shake my head when I hear that remark.
As somebody who's been working in this industry for 3 decades now, I understand what you're saying, and we are shaking our heads. If this dispute doesn't get resolved, how concerned are you about the survival of local news in communities that need it the most?
Well, you know, all this stuff happening with, you know, has it made a difference with our site traffic? Is it making a difference with other organizations' site traffic? I think it's going to have the weird, counterintuitive reaction of people having to seek out the news and get off Meta, well, can't really get off Google, but you can maybe use a different Bing. You could Bing or whatever. But you know, people are going to seek out local news. I know that back in 2016, the CRTC did a big consultation, and 81% of Canadians want local news based on who was cited in that consultation. You know
what they say, Jesse? I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, if there's going to be any decline, it's largely going to be in for-profit newsrooms. I think we're going to see nonprofit, cooperative, and worker-owned models maybe be the future for print and broadcasting. I know that there's local examples on Vancouver Island that I'm excited about, and we are ourselves launching a nonprofit newsroom. So, perhaps this will be some wind in our sails in that
yes.
project. So.
They say local news builds community, and that's what you're doing. And we appreciate your time tonight. That was Jesse Woodward. He is the station manager at CHLY 101.7 FM, and he joined us tonight from Nanaimo, BC. Appreciate your time, Jesse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.